Okay. Okay. Please tell us your name and how you came to live in the community of Clear Lake. After the bell.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Oh, no. My name is Raymond Cress, and I was born and raised on a farm about 10 miles southeast of here. Went to a country school and came to Clear Lake when I started high school.
My name is Richard Buhr, and I was born and raised in Clear Lake, and I lived on, what do they call it, South Street, the big purple house on South Street. That's where I lived until I was 9 years old.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You might find out things about me you didn't want to know.
Okay.
Oh, we shouldn't be talking off the cuff like that.
Kind of already answered how long you've lived here. Do you have any family members who also lived here?
Let's see, my two brothers live in town here. They've been in Clear Lake their entire lives. One was a trucker, one worked for Anderson Windows. And that's about it, they and their wives, yep.
I have several living here. Yeah.
About half the town.
Yeah. And half the town, her dad, of course, and then Josh and Jill.
Yeah.
Try to name them all. Josh and Jill, Aaron and Danette, Jocelyn and Levi.
You might have to help them out.
Rhonda, Mike.
Rhonda and
Eric
Mike,
and
yeah, so yeah,
Jason.
we have a lot of them living here. Lots of them.
Yes.
All right.
What did your parents do for a living?
Pardon?
Oh, what did your parents do for a living?
Your parents, what did they do for a living?
Oh, my dad was a butter maker at the Clear Lake Creamery, Farmers Co-op Creamery, and then also we farmed. And then at one point we bought milk trucks and together, and we had milk routes too.
My parents were primarily farmers, but later on, my dad did some building and remodeling of homes and barns and stuff of that nature. And then my parents bought the Midway Bar here in Clear Lake in the 1960s. So from farm to little side income on rebuilding, and then bar owners, it's quite an education. So.
And where was the creamery?
The creamery, AFP was the Farmers Co-op Creamery.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Where did you, where you grew up, were you, all the things that you grew up around, are they still here in Clear Lake? Or, what are they now? Your farm, the farm you grew up on, your house, where are they now?
Okay, when you say they, who'd you?
Where is your home now? Is it still here in Clear Lake, the farm?
Yes, I graduated from Clear Lake High School here, and then I went to college at UW River Falls, and I got drafted, and then I worked for the Department of Agriculture for 22 years, lived in Eau Claire, and I moved back here 15 years ago into the house that my dad built and my folks lived in. So I went full circle from Clear Lake out in the world and back to Clear Lake again.
Is your house still here? The house you grew up in?
Pardon again?
Is the house you grew up in
Still
still
in.
here?
It's on South Street. When I grew up there on South Street, where Ray's house is and all the homes on that side of the road, that was pasture land. And cows were out in there all the time. Yep.
I'm learning something. Okay.
Do you have any family traditions?
Wow. Specifically,
I
both side of Christmas and
Yeah.
Thanksgiving and that.
I think family traditions were far more numerous when we were kids,
Yeah.
because it's a different world nowadays. Families were closer together because they didn't know some of their neighbors 3 miles down the road back in those days. But now it's like Dick said, we get together at one of my brother's house for Christmas every year, and my other brother's house on Thanksgiving. So that's primarily what the traditions are right now, is eating food.
That's right, yeah. And then when we grew up on South Street, oh, Ray, you can say that too. You knew everybody around you.
Yeah.
And the South Street was plumb full of kids, and you walked everywhere.
Yeah.
You walked everywhere. If you wanted to go to the beach, you walked to the beach.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Did you have like any gardens that you used or anything?
In a garden, did you say?
Yeah.
Now, you remember you're talking to two old guys that can't hear
You
you.
gotta speak up.
Yeah, don't be afraid to bellow at us. Well, it's interesting that you say a garden because when you're a kid on the farm, you had a garden for your vegetables. We had a berry patch for strawberries, and we go into the woods for blueberries and raspberries, and we had chickens that laid eggs, and we had beef, and we had pork. We were poor, but we had wonderful food to eat all the time.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. I couldn't put it any better. We went. The woods was full of raspberries in those days, and you just went back there in the pasture. The cattle pastured back there, but picked berries and everything Ray said was pretty much the way it was. We had our own milk.
Yeah.
It was raw milk. Nobody ever got sick from it. Chickens roosted in the barn, laid eggs up on the stanchion row,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Did you have any food that you looked forward to when you were out picking berries and stuff? Did you have anything specific that you would get excited for to go home and eat, or that your parents would make?
Boy, I don't know. I had a really good cook for a mother.
Yeah. Yeah,
Everything
all the
was
moms
great.
were great cooks
Oh,
back in those days. But
Yeah.
the one thing that I enjoyed that was kind of exotic were morel mushrooms.
Mm.
In May each year, there was a neighbor who, back in their woods, would grow these morel mushrooms, and that was a real treat. My mother knew how to fry them in some kind of an egg batter, and so that was a little off the cuff, off the wall. Everything else was pretty much right
Yeah.
there on the farm.
Yeah. The only thing exotic I ever ate was lutefisk.
Oh, there we go.
I ate that on every Christmas Eve. That was a tradition.
Mm.
Every Christmas Eve, lutefisk. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I can still smell it.
Excuse me.
Okay. What's an example of any like chores or jobs that you had growing up?
Okay, run that by me again.
Chores or
Chore.
jobs?
When we were kids, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
When you were growing up.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Well, when we lived in town, we had real mowers. You probably had them on the farm too.
Yeah,
With no
yeah,
motors.
yeah.
We were the motors.
Yeah, I
And
forgot
so
about
my
that.
sister Maria and I, we were small. Sandy could push it. She was older. She could
Yeah.
push it alone, but each one of us got on each side of the handle. It took two of us to mow the lawn.
Yeah.
And the lawn was easy to mow until June grass, when grass would head out. It got really tough, didn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Hard to mow, yeah. It was quite a job mowing. And then when we moved to the farm, of course, that all changed. And
Yeah.
then because my dad went to work at 1 in the morning, we had to milk cows every morning. My sister and I had to milk cows every morning and then get on the school bus. So we were up at about 3:45 every morning, milk the cows, and had to get done in time to get on the school bus about, I don't know, 7:20 or so. We rode the same bus,
Yes, we did.
Ray and I.
Yes, we
yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you meant the push lawnmowers. I mowed the lawn when I was a kid, and for some reason, even to this day, there's something about lawn mowing that's mesmerizing to me.
Yeah.
And this was a push mower, and the lawn got bigger every year. And my folks finally said, "What are you doing out there?" Well, I'm wasting time, I guess. But anyway, but it was pretty big by the time I left the farm. But we helped the parents milk cows and the haying and the plowing and the disking.
Cultivating corn.
Chores, cultivating corn. Sometimes we actually did cultivate corn, and we shouldn't have been if you got off.
If you got off the
digging
road.
up the corn. Dad didn't like that very much.
There wasn't any chemicals used on the land
No
in those days,
chemicals.
so you cultivated your corn until it was probably about
Yeah.
this tall.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so what you call canopying. And
Yeah.
then the weeds didn't grow because they were shaded.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. You were always busy on the farm. The one job
Oh,
I
yeah.
hated was picking rocks.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That is
Endless.
that is one reason that neither my brothers or I wanted to go farming, because we had a lot of rocks.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah.
But I never learned as good as you, Ray.
yeah.
That's why I'm still farming.
Yeah.
Ray was smarter than me.
I got to tell you about a rock pile. The rock pile was our recycling center when I was a kid. All of our bottles and cans and jars and everything went up the rock pile, and everything was burnable got burned. And we would spend summers up there with our BB guns shooting at different tin cans and jars and glass. So
Was there any like homemade medical stuff that your parents did, or like the medical things that were available?
Oh yeah, I don't know. If you got a really bad cold, my mother might put Vicks under your nose so you
Yeah.
could breathe better. I still have Vicks today.
Vapor up, yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. Boy, I can't think of anything particular.
Yeah.
I know, you know.
I shouldn't say this, but my dad had some elixirs that he liked. If
Yeah.
he had the, I gotta get this right. He drank ginger brandy for one thing and blackberry brandy for another.
Great cold medicine.
Ginger brandy?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
blackberry.
And one of them was for diarrhea and the other one was for cold medication. So, yeah. Both of them worked fine with me. I didn't really care.
How has Clear Lake changed over the years? So like, hold on, I have to clear my throat. Excuse me. Like businesses, things like trees, new houses, things like the field, how out there South Street, the field changing. Like, what has changed? The school, the railroad tracks, stuff like that.
Everything's changed dramatically.
True.
And I'll just do South Street here. Not only was right across the road from that big, it was all pasture. And the cows were put across the road every day from breeding zone, John Buhr's grandpa. They were put across the road, in behind us every day. And then as you went east out of town, there was nothing on the north side of the road except that one older home. And they were all fields. On the north, where all the houses are. On the north side of the road, they were all fields. And where the brick house sits at the end of the lake road, when we come up past the old VFW, that was a field. And there we made hay on that field for my grandpa, who had cows. And so that dramatically changed in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where my dad built the house that I lived in on
Yeah.
that same street. So,
Yeah. And where by John
John
Buhr's house,
Buhr,
that house, that's more, you know where Ray lives? You have any?
Yep.
Well, the big house beside him, the tall 2-story.
Yep.
That house sat out on where the trestle is on 63, where you go over the old railroad
Yeah,
track.
yeah.
That house was moved from there into town because that's where John Buhr and them grew up. And then they decided to take 63 and go around Clear Lake. And so they moved that house into town then. And yeah, that was the first house on that side of the road then.
Is he gonna give me a chance to talk here?
I know.
No.
I kind of took over for you.
Yeah, good for you, thank you. I jotted a few things down, and I'm a good friend of Chuck Clark, who knows all the history of Clear Lake, and I kind of remember some of the things he told me when I was a kid. He said at one time there were 7 stores in town that sold groceries.
Yeah.
7 stores, that was hard to believe. We had 2 feed mills, we had 2 clothing stores, we had a shoe shop, we had 2 car dealerships, a blacksmith shop, a creamery, railroad depot.
2 hardware stores, did you say that?
2 hardware
Yeah.
stores, yeah. And just think, when you think about that, hardware stores and clothing stores and shoe shops and grocery stores, now it's Walmart.
Yeah. We had 2 big lumber yards,
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
2 big ones that
Yeah.
supplied the lumber and everything and coal. A lot of
Yeah.
people's homes burned coal in those days.
Yeah.
Huge lumber yards, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much
I'm starting to feel kind of old here, Dick.
Yeah, but you know, everything you needed was right in town.
Yeah, you didn't have to drive a long
Yeah.
distance to get what you needed.
Yeah, we were just off the horse and buggy days, so we could get to town pretty fast with our vehicles, but we didn't go very far because we didn't have to go very far to get what we needed. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about all the food we raised at home. We would come shopping in Clear Lake on Friday nights, and the only thing I recall taking home was a bag of flour and a bag of sugar and maybe some salt
Coffee.
and pepper and coffee. Yeah.
Coffee, yeah.
Can't forget the coffee. Yeah.
And
But
usually, yeah,
the rest of it we had at home. We raised it, so
yeah, that's the way it was with us too.
Yeah.
And the coffee, you had to grind it.
yeah.
Yeah, they
That's
come
good
as
coffee.
beans and they put it through a grinder.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up here, or when you first moved?
What was the last comment about growing up in?
What was it like growing up?
Yeah, just like
Okay.
Except
Well,
for
when we were on the farm, we lived 10 miles from town. And you were pretty much localized right there. Your immediate neighbors were the people you visited with, your cousins who you played with, and you didn't get too far out there. And I'll give you an example of that. There was a gal that I ended up going to high school with. Her name was Cheryl Paulson. She lived 2 miles from me as the crow flew, and I never knew her or met her until I got to high school.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the world was shrunken.
Yeah.
Our world was shrunk into a small area, except for going to church on Sunday. That pulled us away from our little immediate area for one day a week.
Yeah, that's the only time we came in is one day a week.
And
Ray
groceries
and
on
I-
Friday night.
Yeah, Ray, and on Friday night, that was a big thing to go to town on a Friday
Absolutely.
night. That was like Clear Lake days.
Yeah.
On a Friday night, everybody came to town because I guess they figured they could on Friday night.
Yep.
And Ray and I went to the same church together, so
Mhm.
we not only went to catechism or Sunday
Yeah.
school, we played ball together and played
Yeah.
against each other,
Yeah.
or with each other and against each other
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Friday nights were special. We got away from rock picking, thank God. And it come to, we
And
come
hay
to,
baling.
yeah, hay baling. I came to town with a 125 cents, a quarter in my pocket. I could buy a Snickers candy bar, a bag of popcorn at the popcorn stand by the Midway bar, a soda for a dime, and I went home with a nickel to put in my bank.
Yeah. And the popcorn, you got a grocery bag full of popcorn this big for a quarter.
Yeah,
Can't do
yeah,
that nowadays.
yeah. I took the mini bag. I didn't eat as much popcorn.
I went with the family size.
There you go.
What did you do for fun, like, when you were younger?
Well, for me, I was a sports nut. I was baseball was my passion, and I didn't play baseball. I had a rubber ball, and we had a 2-story farmhouse, and I would throw that rubber ball high up to the 2nd story and catch fly balls, and then on the lower story I would catch ground balls going to the left, going to the right, and da-da-da-da-da. So ball was a passion for me. I watched the Saturday game of the week with Pee Wee Reese and Dizzy Dean, the announcers. They are both Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect you to know either one, but Pee Wee and Dizzy, and I listened to them. Well, I should say not every Saturday, because I was probably out picking rocks a lot of that time to kind of teed me off. But anyway, yeah, I sports was really my passion, and the neighborhood kids and us played softball and all that good stuff.
You know, Ray talked about throwing. I threw the ball off the top of the barn, and caught it because I didn't have nobody to play with.
Yeah,
I did the same thing.
yeah,
That's what we did. And I
yeah.
kind of was a sports nut, but Ray was a very, very good athlete in school. He was
Well,
a
maybe one berry is enough.
Yeah, but he was a really, really good. He was a 3-sport athlete
Yeah,
in school. Yeah.
Yeah, I love sports, and I think I've wasted about a third of my life following sports. I could have been doing something a lot more productive with that period of time.
Oh. Okay, so you guys talked about on Friday nights everyone would come to town. Where were the gathering places that you guys would go on Friday nights? Was there like
Main Street, they had benches on Main Street, and people a lot of times just sat on their bumpers of their cars. That's what they do. And then, of course, the grocery stores did business right. Well, the whistle would blow at 10 o'clock at night, and they were still wheeling groceries out.
Yeah,
And then so a lot of the people went into the local watering holes.
yeah.
But they're pretty much the same as they were back then, except for the upper corner.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing that I really remember is they would put up a sheet by the old town hall, which is now the industrial building out there, and they would show outdoor movies.
Yep.
And Ma and Pa Kettle was my favorite.
Yep.
Ma and Pa visited us quite often during the summer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then we would have our popcorn, our Snicker bars, and our soda.
And sit down on the lawn.
Yeah.
Reeve out at Reeve, they did the same thing on Wednesday night. They had free movies.
Yeah,
Unroll a big sheet. Town was full.
yeah.
Yeah. It was quite a gathering.
Yeah, for Reeve, that was quite a gathering.
Mm-hmm.
You guys probably didn't do too much shopping, but if you did, where would you go for that?
Say that again.
Shopping?
Oh,
Where would you go shopping?
Our shopping was pretty much in Clear Lake. If you went anywhere at all, you might go to Richmond or maybe Emery. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Then once a year, because my mother had worked in the Twin Cities after she got out of high school, just before school started, we'd go down to on 7th Street in downtown St. Paul. That's where all the stores were. There wasn't any Walmarts or nothing in those days. So once a year we'd go down. That was quite an adventure going down to the Twin Cities. And then we go out to Montgomery Ward, which was on University Avenue. Yeah. Other than that, no, we didn't go really anywhere.
boy, you guys really were big time. We got as far as the Richmond, and that was it. When I was a little kid, my mother was originally from Glenwood City. She was a Barons, and that's a pretty common name down there. Kind of like what the Burrs are around here now. But anyway, she was a Barons, so we did all of our shopping down there up until about the time I was in 7th or 8th grade, grocery shopping and doing the Friday night gig down there. And the one time of the year that we could get away, we would get our school clothes in Richmond. We'd get 2 new pair of pants and maybe 2 or 3 new shirts, and then that lasted us the year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that was it.
What was it like in school? Like, did you do any clubs and what sports and things?
I don't know, ag. I was in ag class, and I really didn't do any sports. I did my freshman year. I think I took basketball, but the way my dad worked, I always had to be home anyhow. So after that, I just left to go.
Yeah.
But not any real clubs that I can recall going on in those days.
Yeah.
FFA was a big thing, and it was all men, all boys in that day, and then there was FHA for the girls. Yeah.
Future Homemakers of America.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't like that title.
I don't know what it's called now, but I think there's more boys in Future Homemakers of America than there are girls now. Like, it's a different term now.
Yeah, it's FCCLA now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
I'm
FFA,
exaggerating. Yeah.
when you guys were in high school, did it still stand for Future Farmers of
Yes, it
America?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta remember, almost everybody came from a farm. And a lot of the boys in town in the summertime would go out and work on farms. Yeah, so they were all real acquainted with farming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Dick was right. Going in A classes and FFA, every farm kid was an FFA member. And like I said, sports carried over into high school for me. That was my passion, and some of my most fondest memories are learning teamwork and working together and all that good stuff, and how to relate to different kinds of people. You go to different schools, you meet different people, and I look at that as expanding your horizons, and you appreciate different people in different aspects. And my most pleasant memory was when I was a senior in high school. We went undefeated, and that was really a wonderful memory. And there aren't many of us left. We got a Bob Buhr who played on that team, and Neil Lilly, and
Jim Rogers.
Jim Rogers is still around. Yeah.
Still around, yeah.
But many of them are gone now. But whenever Bob and I and Neil get together, we always drift back to those days. So a lot of great memories.
Okay, I have a list of things, so you might have to listen for a second. But what events in this area do you remember? So I have a list of things that will jog your memory. So, like weather, war, factories, holidays, parades, the circus, fairs, carnivals, music, dances, and other things in Clear Lake that you can remember.
Okay.
Oh, when I was really young, the fair came to town, and because 63 used to go straight through town, go by the old high school, and that was the main road going up north. The fair came to town, and they set up all the rides right down Main Street in Clear Lake. Ferris wheels and everything that they had to link to Main Street. And so that came in, and then the circus came in, and where the creamery is, where the the trailer court is, in Clear Lake, if you're aware of that, that was a big field. It was just a farm field and a pasture, and they set up in there, and they had the animals and the elephants. That was a big deal. They didn't do that over a couple of times, I think, and that was it. But I still remember the smell of those camels. They had quite an odor, worse than when I came out of the haymow.
Yeah, well, just a few things here. I remember back in high school, a lot of the kids my age would go to Deronda. They had a roller rink over there. They had a roller rink here prior to that time.
Yeah, Winniger's had it.
Winniger's
I went
had
back
it,
to that.
But I was never in that. We were still on the farm then. But the town kids remember skating and
Yeah, we went
the
skating
roller
there.
rink. Reeve had a fair down there, and I had one thing that stands out in my mind. My cousin Billy Cress, who was a year older than I was, we went up on these airplane rides where you got maybe 6 airplanes, you can spin them around, and here we go going around, and I'm up in one of those airplanes with my cousin Billy, and it was kind of a rickety carnival. They didn't have very safe rides back in those days, and the belt slipped off of us, and my cousin, the airplane went sideways, and my cousin Billy started sliding out the window, and I grabbed him by the back of his pants. So I'm hanging onto the bar up here, and I'm hanging onto his belt down there, and we were yelling and screaming like nobody heard us forever, you know. And we finally got out, and so I always tell my cousin Billy that he's damn lucky to be alive. I say it
I could just hear Billy's coming too.
and he deserves some of that because he was a stinker. Okay, one more thing that I remember. I remember Clear Lake Dairy Days. I don't know if that's what it was called, Dick, but it was the creamery put on this big event and
Yep,
a meal,
exactly.
food for people and stuff. And
Yeah.
I remember one year they had an airplane come in, and they had tags attached to balloons, and they let the balloons out of the airplane, and the kids went scurrying off, and you could get a pint of ice cream over here and a gallon of milk over there, but you had to catch a balloon and find out what you won and which store to go to get it. Well, the wind came up and started blowing everything towards Clayton, so I think we got about 5 miles up the road to even get one balloon. That was the last year they did it, so, but that brings back memories.
Because we didn't do a lot of traveling around, everything was real simple, real
Yeah.
simple times, and we had a lot of fun with them simple times,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the Clear Lake Centennial, the 100-year anniversary of Clear Lake?
Yeah,
Did you have any celebrations for that?
it
Or?
was 1976, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, everybody grew beards, that was, yeah, we grew beards and that, yeah, and unfortunately, I was hauling milk the day of that parade, but the parade had like 120 units in it. They'd
Yeah.
come from all over the country to
Yeah.
help celebrate that. By the time I got done hauling milk, the parade was done,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, at that time, I believe I was living in Platteville, Wisconsin, so I didn't get back. I left Clear Lake physically and event-wise for about 22 years. I didn't get back here very often except for the holidays,
Yeah.
Christmas and Thanksgiving, so I missed out on that, but I real active in the historical museum now, in the Burley Grimes room, the Gaylord Nelson room, and in fact I'm in the process right now of working with 11 different stores and people here who want to put on displays and exhibits for this 150-year centennial.
Mhm.
So we've got 11 or 12 things lined up. For instance, Bernie and Bruce Paulson, they shoot the cannon to start the parade every year.
Mhm.
Well, this year they're going to allow people to come in an hour before they shoot the cannon, and people can look at their exhibit, and if they want to stick around, they can watch them blow the cannon off. And there's 10 or 11 other things we got planned for that.
And that museum is where I went to grade school.
Yeah.
I went through 4th grade there, and then they shifted us over to the big building, the high school, for 5th, 6th, and 7th, and finished out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I graduated from, so.
And you guys,
And at one time, the gymnasium Well, when I was going to school, the gymnasium part of that wasn't on. The gymnasium was actually down where the industrial arts room would have been. Well, Ray knows where that is.
Yes, the
That's where the
sunshine.
gymnasium was, and that's where the basketball, well, I think it's a physical fitness room, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, where you walk down the steps.
Physical fitness.
That was the gymnasium, and,
Yeah.
we used to go to basketball games there, and remember David Clemens?
Yep.
Yeah, we used to watch him, he was about 6'7", he was one of the tallest kids we ever saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you guys went to the high school, the community center, right?
Yep,
Both of you?
yep,
Yeah, they, after they, built the new gymnasium, they put a floor over the top of the gym, which is now the dining hall of the community center.
yeah,
So beneath the dining room was the old basketball court that you was alluding to.
yeah.
Yeah.
They had all the seats were on one side, and then up on the stage,
Mhm.
it was just a one side, which wasn't uncommon in those days either, that's had the seating and that, so. I remember that well, cause we'd walk down, we walked everywhere, so we just all walked down to the game, and I don't know, games didn't start till about 8 o'clock at night then.
Yeah, I never saw a game there. I didn't even know that thing existed. When I came here in 1959, they had just built a new gym. So I never did play in the old gym. But I hear all the good stories about it. So.
And their locker room was by the boilers.
Well, you were kept warm anyway.
Yeah, that's where the locker room was, very small, but right by the boilers.
Don't bend over too far, huh?
Yeah, you never got cold out there.
Do you want to keep it going?
What time is it?
35.
35. We can finish up with the last few questions at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you remember any fires or important businesses closing?
Boy, a lot of businesses has closed over the years.
Yeah.
When I was young, there was 4 grocery stores there. Like right at one time, somebody else told me there were 7, but one of them was Schultz's store, one Fairway store. Of course, Nielsen's, and Nielsen sold not only groceries, but they sold pants and shirts and shoes and that. And then Andy's Meat Market, he was more like a butcher shop, but they sold groceries there. And yeah, what was the question again?
Fires or disasters.
Oh, fires. Well, Amory had some
Distracted.
big fires.
Yeah, they did.
Amory did. I don't remember Clear Lake really having
Well,
huge fires
where
right in
was
our
it?
day.
was it Nielsen's? Was
yeah.
it the hardware store that burned?
That's right.
Where the gazebo is now, there was a building there, and I can't remember. I think it was the hardware store.
And the hardware store beside it was that brutally cold, like 25,
Yeah.
30 below that night, and that started on fire.
Or the speakeasy, like that little gazebo, like
Uh,
right off of Main Street, that one,
Yeah, right.
or the one
the-
over.
Or yeah, across the road from the ambulance.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
yep.
by the speakeasy
Okay,
there.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a building there, and the only other thing, and I can remember, we had a couple of burglaries where some people broke into a few of the stores and stole stuff. I can't
Yeah.
remember who or what, but I remember people talking about it. And even back, if you even went further back, and I'm not even gonna go that far back, but everything, all the buildings are made of wood back in those days. So if you had wood, you're gonna have fires, and a couple of the main establishments back in the old days burned up. And if there was a vacant spot as you're going down Main Street, there was a building there at one time, like between the post office and
There used to be mills, logging mills, down where the old VFW used
Yeah.
for the army tank. That was a logging mill
yeah.
down in there, and there's viaducts back in further back in order to drain them. They had to have a lot of water, and there's viaducts behind those ponds
Yeah.
there to get rid of some of that water,
So there's
keep
some-
that water low. Otherwise, you'd be flooding across that road.
That's where the sawmills were, right?
Yeah.
I got one more thing to mention.
Oh.
Okay, getting short on time here. At one time, they had a big wooden tower near where the fire department is now. During
Yeah.
World War II, people would have to sit up there and look for German planes
Really?
coming
Yeah.
into Clear Lake and the area. I forget, civil defense, I guess it was called.
Yep.
And people had to sign up and go up and spend a few hours or 3 or 4 hours, I don't know. But they would up there with binoculars looking for a plane during World War II.
Even though we're in the middle of the country, they,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't think any Nazi planes flew over Clear Lake.
No, I don't think so. My dad was over there though, fighting the Nazis.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Yep.
We just have like 4 more questions, so we might go a little over, but that's okay.
That's
It's all
all right.
right.
Morgan, do you want to ask the
Was
this
it?
one?
Was there any like legends or stories that were really famous in town?
Legends? Yeah.
I don't know. The only legend I really know is Burley Grimes.
Yeah.
He came from here, became a great
Yeah.
spitball pitcher,
Yeah.
and he's in the Hall of Fame. Really
Yeah.
quite a pitcher, and I think he was a manager for a
He,
while.
he spent 46 years in professional baseball as a minor league player, a coach, a manager, and you're right. And he was up in Montreal, Canada for a couple of years managing a team up there.
And then Gaylord Nelson
Yeah.
came from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, grew up here. He played baseball and everything.
Get up there in the museum, you'll learn all about it.
Yeah, really. Did they have a small town that kicked out 2 of those guys? It was pretty dang good, you know, when you think about it.
I'd say so.
Yeah, and they became very, very famous people.
Did either of you meet Burley Grimes or Gaylord A. Nelson?
Pardon me? Oh.
Did you meet either of them?
You know, that is so sad. I'm the one that got credit for decorating the 2 rooms up there, so I got real close to them without even knowing them. But that's one thing that I regret. There again, I lived outside of Eau Claire back in those days, and I never even thought of coming into back to Clear Lake to meet those guys, and now I regret not doing that.
Well, the closest you'll get to them without the cemetery, they're buried out here.
Yeah, they're both
Grimes
there.
and Nelson's are buried at the cemetery, yeah.
And that's, if you talk to Chuck Clark, he's a town historian. Those 2 guys pretty much symbolize people from Clear Lake.
Yeah.
They left, they did wonderful, great things, and who would ever think that they would want to come back here and be buried? And that same kind of spirit is alive today,
Yeah.
in my mind anyway. And that's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
one more guy we can't forget, Johnny Mucci.
Oh yeah, Johnny. He was actually a World War II hero. He was in a Japanese prison camp.
Really? I never knew
Yes.
that.
He went on when he came home. He became an all-star wrestler,
Mhm.
professional wrestler.
Yeah.
But you know the story there. Tell the story about him when he was in. They'll be interested in hearing that.
When he was
In a prisoner of war camp.
he was in the U.S. Marine Corps. He was captured during World War II and taken into Japan, where he was a prisoner of war. And he was kind of a muscular guy and very outgoing and brave. And he would steal food from the Japanese food storage areas and sneak it into the prisoners who were literally starving. And they caught him a few times, and I guess he beat the hell out of a number of those Japanese. But they would subdue him, and he would get thrown into a pit, for so many days. But he must have been quite a guy. And then he came back here and became a professional wrestler, and moved to California somewhere during his career and was killed in an automobile accident.
Also, the Japanese brought some of their best fighters up against him.
Yeah.
He knocked them all out.
Yeah.
And he almost became kind of like a hero over there. They looked up to him because no matter who they put up against him, he could beat them.
Yeah.
He beat him. He was a boxer and he was a wrestler.
He went. They had boxing in Amory High School back in those days.
Yeah.
And that's where he learned to box. And then somebody got killed years later. And then they eliminated boxing at high school, and even at college level. So.
And my dad tells a story about his dad. Most Italians weren't very tall, and I remember Johnny Mucci real well as a kid. But their dad is not tall people, but very muscular and very stout. My dad tells the time he remembers his dad, and they lived over there on the hill going to Amory.
Yeah.
in that old schoolhouse,
Yeah.
walking out of Clear Lake with a walking plow
To the
on
last
his shoulder and walking home with that. He had it repaired in
Oh
town.
my God.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
that was his dad who did that. So he came by his muscles through
Yeah.
his folks, you know.
Johnny Mucci.
Yeah.
Okay. For your relatives who may watch this in the future, is there anything you'd like for them to remember or know?
Okay. Want them to remember about Clear Lake? Is
Yeah.
it- okay.
Or about you?
Oh, probably not.
There's certain things we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I love people. I love this community. I love. I'm missing the key word here. I love people of all races, colors, and there are good people out there everywhere you go. All you got to do is say, hey, how's it going today?
Yeah.
And if they walk away from you, let them go. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a good conversation out of anybody that you meet. Keep that in mind. There's so much division in this country now. It's pathetic. Really upsets me.
Yeah.
And there's no need for that. And you young folks, you're going to have to somehow try to get back to the way it used to be, and people treated each other right instead of.
There's always been politics.
Yeah.
There was Democrats and Republicans when we were young, but there wasn't this button heads.
Yeah.
And they learned to work together.
Right.
And when they were voted into the legislatures and
Yeah.
into the senators all worked together to
Yeah.
come up for a common cause as they passed bills and that.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
And all I can say about Clear Lake, it's still a great place to be raised.
Yeah, and there is that
It really
division
is.
here, but on the other hand, everybody kind of keeps to themselves, and they're not bad mouthing their neighbors or their
Yeah.
friends or their relatives. They still work together despite this division that exists, which I hope goes away.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
Yeah. It's a tough time for young people
yeah,
to see this and grow up through this. It's tough for Ray and I because we saw it other ways.
yeah,
But him and I could be on opposite sides, but it has nothing to do with how I feel about Ray
right, yeah,
sitting here.
yeah, that's
'Cause,
right.
You know?
That's exactly right. And,
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good
to
thing
take
being
them in
that
Clear
way. So.
Lake here. Yep,
So mostly it's about forgiveness and looking at the bigger picture,
absolutely,
you know, so, yeah.
absolutely.
Is there anything else that you would want to talk about or tell any stories about?
Oh, boy.
I think they wore me out. I got
Definitely.
The only thing I would say is I love young people because I'm surrounded by young people.
Yeah, there you go.
I have 20 some grandchildren and
Yeah,
I know a lot of their friends and I think it's really a treasure for me.
you're
It's really
blessed.
good. I'm
You're blessed. I don't have that, and I
Yeah.
gave a presentation this morning at the grade school for Earth Day, and just watching the kids just inspires me.
Yeah.
And we gave out awards, and there were 3 4th graders and 2 6th graders that got awards for their posters, and then they got a pre-kindergarten girl. She's just the cutest little turd. She keeps shutting up there, and here she's looking up at these other kids bigger than her, and she's just thrilled to death.
Yeah.
And the piece of artwork that she did is pretty amazing for a little girl that age. But there's a term for it. It's something kindergarten, junior kindergarten.
Yeah.
Okay, is that kind of pre-kindergarten?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well anyway, I get those feelings through those kids. You've got family, you can deal, you've got that going for you all the time,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Another thing that I always remember being young, I think is important as you're getting older too, is back when we had the old gymnasium, remember Jerry Gilbertson?
Yeah.
Jerry was a great basketball player, but when they came out to go in, they'd come out of their boiler room to go into the gym. We'd stand on them steps there, and everybody turn and go in, but when Jerry came through, he always had time to stop and talk to me.
Is that
Talk to
right?
us. Yes, he always
Wow.
took time. And that's what's important, because the little kids, like you kids are getting, you young people are getting older, the little kids look up to you. And if you even say hi to them, it makes a big difference a lot in their life. That's funny how I never forgot that, Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you do that a lot.
Talk, just kind of, it's reaching out to somebody.
Yeah,
And if you do that, your whole world
yeah.
expands and you leave a lot of good thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one more story.
Okay.
Okay,
I think we
Trixie
need
the
one more
horse.
story.
Trixie the horse.
Is this real?
This is real. Jerry Cress's horse. Now you can get a picture of
Oh,
what's going
okay.
on. Okay,
Yeah.
my cousin. When we were kids, we started out walking, then we got bicycles, and then we got horses for a while. And we all had a horse, and my cousin Jerry, who was kind of a little odd guy, a big odd guy, he got a horse named Trixie, and it was an albino white horse with pink eyes. Okay, and Trixie had one fault. We could be out riding around the neighborhood, and if there was a mud hole or a water hole, she would just take Jerry right down in there, and she would roll in the mud. And that white horse turned different colors. So, whenever it rained, we'd invite Jerry out to go riding with us. And old Trixie, down in like a pig wallow, and she was rolling around in there.
How did Jerry take that?
You know something? I don't know. Jerry, in a way, hated it, but he got the kick out of it as well.
Well, he made fun of it too.
But he sure had a lot of dirty clothes when he got home.
I'm sure Wilmer got after him.
Yeah.
His mother.
Yeah. Oh, Trixie the horse.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a good story to end on. Thank you for coming in
Yeah,
today.
thanks for having us.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you, girls.
Well, thank you, Dick. Hey, Gully.
Yeah, good seeing
Thank
you
you.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you stop
you got